my name is Nikki MacDonald. I am the head of certification and standards at the Financial Planning Institute. And we are also responsible, myself and Rihanna Badenhorst, for the consumer education leg at the FBI. Now, you are here because this week, from today up until Sunday, is what we call Global Money Week. This is an annual worldwide campaign that raises awareness of financial education specifically among young people. And I think there is nothing in South Africa that is more important at this point in time for financial institutions than to make sure they do their part in lifting and educating consumers so that they can make better financial decisions. Now, in line with this, we are very happy to introduce some of our presenters this afternoon. Now, I can tell you that all three of the people I've got online with me who's going to present to our students on how to navigate the student financial journey is from Crue Invest, and they won the prize for the best professional practice in South Africa, the best FBI professional practice in South Africa in 2023. So these guys know how to do financial planning. They are also very much involved in consumer education and has started up what they call Crue Academy that also assists in the financial education leg. So we are very happy to have you here. First of all, I'm going to introduce Alex Odendaal, and he will introduce the rest of the speakers as we go along. If you have any questions, please type it in the chat box, and after they've presented, we will have a question and answer session where we will answer all your questions. So, Alex, over to you, and we can't wait to listen to your message this afternoon. I think we have lost Alex. Alex, are you still here?
We're just having a little bit of trouble. There we go. I think Alex is almost there.
There is now. Sorry, I do the same thing from time to time, Alex. Technical difficulties is my speciality.
Okay, no, perfect. Guys, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Perfect.
Over to you, Alex.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay, guys, firstly, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you, Nikki and Rihanna and the behalf of the FBI to provide us this platform today to have our session with regards to financial management for students. And guys, when we talk about that, we also talk about financial management for students, not just in right now, but also beyond. So I'm going to start off the session to talk about my journey as a student and how I got to today as a CFP professional. So how I got here today was essentially I started off with my journey was in high school where I kindled my relationship with financial, I fell in love with it, is that my father was a CFP professional. He owns his own business. And I was afforded the opportunity to actually sit in the meeting with him and to actually see how he sat with the client. And, you know, they feel burdened, you know, with this financial decision they need to make, and it's difficult. And him providing the answers or giving them, you know, the peace of mind that they can make the financial decisions on their own with the information he had provided. And I was like blown away by that. So essentially that is where I started with my love for financial planning. So that's where I started off, going from there, studying my BCom through Mill Park Education. As many of you may know, it's a university online. As many of you, I can understand, you guys are all online as well. Many of you probably think that it's not as important as the other institutions, but it really is. And I went through that journey and I really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, as we go through this, you know, we go through a lot of hurdles of like failing a course or two, and that's what happened to me. And my final year, I failed the last big final exam. And as you all know, as you get towards the end, technically you can't write again. Within that year, you have to rewrite the final year again the next year. And I was really discouraged, but I felt like what was missing for me was the practical part. All the theory and all that was there, but it's just bridging that gap. And that made me go through the the journey of actually looking for work. And I was very fortunate to land up here at Crue Invest, who then helped my journey, helped me bridge that gap from the theory to the practical, which then helped me finish my BCom. After finishing my BCom, I ended up going to finishing off my postgraduate diploma at UFS in financial planning. And then thereafter, I wrote my CFP exams. All right through this process, I was working, and it was very tough, but it was extremely rewarding. And I did find that it was a lot easier to get through the coursework because, you know, you basically did it every day. And that's what I found also with the FPR, when you write the exams, the stuff is quite, you use it every day, essentially. And yeah, it was really enjoyable and I enjoyed it. And that's where I got today. I became a CFP professional through that. And guys, essentially the reason why I'm telling you about this, not just to flaunt my own feathers here or anything, but I wanted to resonate with you and help you realize that no matter what journey you go through, the road is not straight and narrow. It is quite haphazard. But as long as you set your goals straight up front and you stick to them, you'll be able to achieve those goals, not just in your professional life, to get to become a CFP or an accountant or an asset manager or whatever, a business owner. It also goes through your own personal financial management. When you go to goals about saving money, putting risk in place, looking after your family, it's a very similar journey. So in saying that, I've told you a little bit on myself. And I really want to get something, we want to get to know you guys a lot better. So I want to play a little game. It's a bit of an icebreaker. I know it's online, it's a bit difficult, but yeah, we've got a nice game for you guys. So I do encourage everyone to please join in. So this game is called Mentally. So if everyone could please take out their phone, or they can use add another window to their computer and then just type in. So if I just, sorry guys, just want to grab in there. Okay, gonna go in. All right. So basically, guys, this game's all about asking questions, and then you guys are going to be answering them. And I really encourage you guys to please answer these questions. It's with as Sherry and Craig. As Sherry and Craig will. Let me just bring this across. Apologies, guys. Let me bring this across. Here we go. All right. So I really do encourage you guys to please answer the question because we'll be using your answers right throughout. And as you can see there, please join at menti.com and you please use the user code there, 7165635. So I want to give you guys a few minutes just to log in there. But essentially, guys, look, I want to let you know that these questions and when you answer, they are anonymous. So please don't feel that you're putting your whole soul out there and everyone to see. These are anonymous. And I really do encourage you guys to answer them. So I'll just give you 4 more minutes there. Okay, all right, I see some answers are going through. So basically the first question was, how are you funding your studies? So guys, is it through your work? Are you getting through a loan? Are you getting funding through NSFAS? Or you got your parents that's helping you? Tell us a little bit more. Okay, so we got some people are working and funding their studies. It's incredible to see there. Some people have taken out loans. Some employers are helping you guys out. Okay, a bursary. Okay. Savings. Okay, I'm glad to see some people are saving. That's brilliant. Some good works coming out. Yeah. Got a. All right, so getting a couple of the same answers here, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, that's perfect. Okay, guys, I'm going to jump into the next question. So how are you guys, which textbooks do you guys use? Which ones? So are we using brand new? Are we using secondhand? Are we doing online versions? Are some of you freeballing it? Or are you guys just going through as is with the slides? Okay, brand new. I see a couple answers through brand new. Okay, online version is probably becoming a lot more popular. Okay, secondhand I see is quite low. Okay, some have none. Okay. All right, I'm going to jump into the next question. How does thinking about money make you feel? So you guys really think about this. Do you feel anxious when you get funds? Do you feel that you feel a bit you're out and about, you feel quite confident. How does it make you feel? I see we got some opportunity, that's brilliant, but intimidated, of course, anxious, sad, independence, a good one, scared, understandable, and concerned. Okay, these are brilliant answers, guys. Thank you very much for participating here. Okay, peace of mind. Okay, stress, overwhelmed, enable. That's good. Okay, burdened. All right, we'll get back to that. Okay, guys, the last final question. We've got, how will you use your first paycheck? Okay, we love asking this question. It's an interesting one. If I had to ask myself again, what did I first do with my first paycheck? What did I do? I think I took out my then girlfriend out. Let's see, by saving towards retirement. Wow, okay, that's a brilliant answer. Love that. Pay bills, that's absolutely. Invest 15% of it. That's brilliant answer. Save, okay. I'm liking. Already working and saving. Guys, I'm really loving these answers. Buy a house, necessities like furniture. Brilliant. Pay bills, that's understandable. Save towards an RA. Buy a novel. I like that. Pay myself first 50%. Okay. Already working and saving, paying bills, both save some and buy some essentials. Okay, I really settle debt and investing. Guys, I like that. You're prioritizing well, already working. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Fund my business. Okay, that's brilliant. All right. Geez, guys, thank you so much for answering all these wonderful questions. I think that, the reason why we're asking these questions, and obviously you can see the variety of answers, they're quite vast and different, and that is, attributed to your financial management. No matter what you do, the road is not the straight and narrow, it is quite haphazard. But, the financial principles should stay constant. And this is something that Sherry will be discussing this through with you guys. And I'll be very happy to introduce to you a first speaker, Sherry Tapfuma, who is an associate financial planner here at Crue Invest, as well as the head of our Crue Academy. Go ahead. Thank you, Sherry.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Alex, for that lovely game and exercise. And thank you to the FPI team for the opportunity. As mentioned, my name is Sherry Tapfuma, and I will be presenting or taking part in some of this presentation today. Let me just share my screen from where Alex left off. There we go. Sorry, Nikki, I'm just trying to figure out my sharing here. There we go. Can everybody see my screen? Maybe just a thumbs up. There we go.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you, Sherry.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Okay, so the game that Alex showed us really I was looking through the answers, and it just highlighted how our perspective towards money, our perspectives are so different. And we also have very different backgrounds with money, just by looking at some of the answers that you guys gave on textbooks, on how we are funding our studies. So as Alex mentioned, even though our backgrounds and perspectives towards money are different, the basics of financial management stay the same. And really, that's just why we're here today, to guide you guys around some of those things. So the first thing that's important when we're talking about financial management and money management is to understand the why. Why do we do what we do? Why are we starting this journey of really being on top of our finances and on top of our money? And I just have a quote here by one of South Africa's favorite, and that is Vusi Thembekwayo. He's a well-accomplished businessman, and one of the quotes that I like by him is that he says that winners are winners because they don't quit when things don't go according to plan. And I think it's important to highlight that as we are starting our money management financial journey, really, it's never going to be a straight line. It's never going to be, something off the books. Mistakes do happen. We make mistakes, we fall off, but it's important to never lose sight of the goal, and also to just keep going, and to keep saving and to keep doing what we're doing. So why is it important to set financial goals, or to set financial goals in general? It's been proven that when you set your goals, you're likely to have reduced stress. I understand you guys are studying, so maybe I understand a lot of you, the goal right now maybe to graduate. And when you know your goal, you sort of have something as well that wakes you up every day, and something that pushes you to want to strive towards that goal. So it increases your motivation when you know what you're working towards. And that is, it applies in finance as well. When you set your financial goals, you sort of know, and you know why you're doing it. You kind of have that increased motivation to keep going. And of course, in this day and age of social media, you see something online, be it a trending shoe, might even be a car that's trending on those days, and you sort of feel the pressure to also want to get the same thing. But if you have your goals that are set, and if you've set your goals, it means that you can manage that peer pressure a little bit better. So when we talk about the types of financial goals, there are essentially three types of goals that we can set. We've got your short-term goals, medium-term goals, and your long-term goals. So for your short-term, I know some of you answered that they actually don't have textbooks at the moment, and your short-term goals could be something like buying yourself some textbooks for school. So in terms of the time frame, your short-term goals, you're looking at about like a 6-month period in which to achieve that goal. So it may also be to start a fund. For some of you maybe that are completing their studies this year, you might want to start putting money aside, so that when you start working, or when you start doing those interviews, you've got something to use for your transportation, or something to put down for your first couple of months of rent while you're just finding your feet. And some of you are really just mid-studies. You still have like a long way to go before you graduate. And really your goal might just be to go home and see your family over the holidays, and you need to make a plan on how to raise those funds. So those are some of the short-term goals that you can expect to put down under the short term. And then we've got what we call medium-term goals. And essentially when we're doing planning, medium-term goals are those goals that are, say, between 3 and 5 years. So you could want to pay off your student loan in the next 5 years' time. You could want to buy a car because maybe next year you start working and you're thinking in the next 3 to 5 years you want to buy a car. Or maybe you really just want to study further. You want to do your master's, you want to do your PhD, and you need money for that. You need money to fund all of that. So that would be your medium-term financial goals. And then in the longer term, when we talk about the longer term, we're talking about things that are much further in the future, and we're looking at about a 15 to 20-year time horizon. And this could be, you want to buy your first house, save for retirement, or even start your own business. So those are the three categories that we categorize our goals under. And then a lot of you probably have heard this principle a lot, and that is the principle of SMART goals. This is where we set goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So what this essentially means, I'm going to break it down for you, right? So if we use the example of a medium-term goal such as paying off your student loan, when we say your goal must be specific. If you, for example, have got 100,000 Rand loan that you need to pay off, you need to be specific in terms of, number one, how much do you want to pay? And number two, the time frame that you want to pay. It can be like you want to pay off your student loan of 100,000 Rand in 2 years' time. That is being very specific with your goal. And when we talk about a measurable goal, we need to be able to measure and track the success of your goal. So if I'm going to use the same example of the 100,000 Rand student loan, it means that you need to start now if you commit yourself to monthly payments of, say, 4,000 Rand to be able to pay the student loan off in about 2 years, it means that every month there's a way you can track to say, okay, we're in month 2, I've paid down 8,000 Rand. So you can measure yourself and you can measure the goal and see the success that you are making. In terms of the goal being achievable, in the same example of paying off your student loan, the goal being achievable actually means that can you actually afford to put money aside to pay off your student loan? So this is where you look at your circumstances. So you don't have to just put goals out into the wild as if you're just dreaming. You have to have a plan of action. You look at your income, you look at your expenses, you look at all your other obligations. A lot of you may be having something like black tax and many other financial obligations. So you need to look at it and say, can I afford to put down this 4,000 Rand every month towards the student loan? So it has to be achievable, right? And when we talk about relevance, we're talking about does it fall in line with who you are, with your values? And something like paying your student loan is actually relevant because paying down your debt actually enhances your financial freedom, your flexibility, and all in at the end you just have a much better outcome by paying off your debt. And then when we talk about time bound, the timeliness of your goal, this is where again we're saying you have to be specific in terms of the timeline that you want to achieve this goal. So in this example, we say 2 years. So you have to put it in such that in 2 years' time you want to be able to have paid off your student loan. So now we've spoken about all these goals. We've spoken about long-term, medium-term, short-term goals and how the goals must be. Now it comes to the question of what actually comes first. You've got all these goals, and some of you may have all the goals that we've listed may actually be on your goal list, and you're not sure exactly what must come first. And this is where we now start talking about budgeting. And essentially what a budget is, it's something that helps you to track your spending so that you understand yourself, what exactly are you spending your money on. So we've just put together some examples of what can actually go into your budget, right? So we've got what we call fixed expenses. So as students, right now, your fees may be something that is fixed because you must pay it every month or annually, however you may pay, but the fees must be paid. So these are fixed expenses. If you're paying for your own accommodation, be it at digs or you're renting out somewhere, then your fixed expenses could be something like your rent. It's something that does not change every month. You know, a fixed amount that you must pay every single month. And then we've got changing expenses. So changing expenses are those things that you need and you spend on, but the actual amount actually changes with each month. So things like your Uber rides, you're never going to know exactly how much you're going to spend on Uber because some trips come up as an emergency, things happen, right? And in terms of alcohol, we know the December alcohol budget is different from the January alcohol budget. So that's the changing expenses. So these are expenses that you do incur, but not at the same rate every single month. And then we've got what we call irregular expenses. So these are things that you pay for every now and again. You might see a girl or a guy that you like, and you might, decide to take them out on a date. So things like that are what we call irregular expenses. Or something unfortunate might happen back at home where you lose a loved one and you must now travel for a funeral. So those kind of expenditures are what we call irregular expenses. Same as falling sick, not for the sick note, but falling sick and going to see the doctor, that will actually be one of your irregular expenses. So we've put together an illustration of a budget. Please note that we're not saying you're earning 10,000 Rand, but this is just for illustrative purposes. So the total income here, we've assumed you're doing some side hustles, you're working in the library at school somewhere, and you're getting in 10,000 Rand a month. And if you're someone that's paying for your own accommodation and fees, we've assumed those amounts, the 4,000 Rand and the 3,000 Rand, to be your fixed expenses towards your education and your accommodation. And then for changing expenses, we've got your food, there is airtime, data, Uber, alcohol, toiletries. So you're spending a couple of hundred Rands on each of those items. And then irregular expenses, you know that, you're seeing someone or you're planning to see someone and you put some money away, some 250 Rand, just for a date here and there. and then maybe you're planning to do a short lift with your friends one day, and you are just putting away 300 Rand towards that. But it all seems well and fair, except now you're actually spending more than you're earning. So you've got a deficit of 950 Rand in your budget. So you're spending 950 Rand more than you're actually earning. Some people, I think it's a phrase that I've heard, that you actually have more month at the end of the money, not more money at the end of the month. So what do you do? You're a student. What do you do in this case where you're spending more than you're earning? And I've put a couple of options. I've been guided, but here we go. Do you now go to a mashonisa and ask for this balance? Do you start loaning money, borrowing money from people? Do you go to your parents to ask for this money, or do you find a blesser, someone that's going to help you with your lifestyle because you've got great taste and you need some sort of help? So these are some of the things that we're seeing young people are engaging and running to actually make ends meet. So there's also another effective way that you can, effective and also sustainable, that you can actually implement within your budget, so that you're in a more comfortable position come month end. And just for illustrative purposes, if you stop spending on luxuries or I think Uber Eats, a lot of people have now just become, it's cold, I don't feel like going out, let me just order something. If you stop spending on luxuries and takeaway, and just maybe start buying your groceries in bulk, chasing sales, you can actually save something like 700 Rand. Or with your airtime, instead of emergency recharge every time and buying airtime all the time, you could just buy a monthly data pack, a gig or two of data that will last you for the month, and actually save some 200 Rand on airtime. Same as Uber. Instead of say Ubering all the time by yourself, try to find mates that are going in the same place that you're going, in the same direction that you're going, so that you guys can share on the Uber expenses. Same as beer. If you like alcohol, you can always just make the most of the happy hour. You go there, buy your beer during happy hour or your alcohol during happy hour, and actually save. Even if it's just 100 Rand, it's a lot. It goes a long way in the bigger picture. So now this person who we are doing an illustration for, they're now actually saving. Instead of spending 950 extra, they are now in the green, and they've got 1,200 Rand at the end of the month. And obviously now it means they can afford all their spending, they can sustain their lifestyle. And when they can actually afford to put all that money away for stuff, it means they can now, afford to save for the romantic date and the weekend getaway. And they're actually in the positive at the end of the month, and there's about 250 left, which you can actually do anything with. You can start making new goals with. Okay, so that's that on budgeting. And then another thing that we see in the industry when we're talking to clients that has become, it's a problem in that, number one, people that are not in debt come to us wanting to know whether they should get into debt. Or people come to us already that are overburdened with debt. So we thought this would be nice to include. As students, you might think, this doesn't really affect me. Only besides my studies, I don't need anything else. But there's something that is now happening. So shops also give debt. They also now lending money out. So let's talk about credit for a second, right? So shops make money with, especially shops that sell you things on account, and things that they give you the option to borrow money from them to buy whatever you want. So they make money from you in two ways, right? Number one, they're making profit of the product that they would have sold you, and number two, they make interest off the money that they would have lent you. So these are the two ways that shops will be making money from you. Or because you got into a shop, you liked certain sneakers and you couldn't wait, or save, you couldn't give yourself enough time to actually save and buy this thing cash. So these are the two ways in which shops have now realized, you know what, our people like things and they like things now. So how do we make money off them now as well? So So that's how credit sort of works. And my colleague Craig is also going to talk more about that. But I've just put a nice example here of guess what we have? It's an iPhone, because everyone likes an iPhone, right? So we've got this iPhone here that's going for 22,000 Rand 999. You look at that number, you look at that figure, and you're like, no way. There's no way I'm spending 22,000 Rand 999 on a phone, which you're right. But then you look at it and they say to you, you could also have this phone today, but you could only pay 899 Rand a month for 36 months. You look at it and say, okay, that's not bad at all. I mean, 899 Rand, I've got a very high value phone out of this. So maybe let me go the route of actually buying this phone on credit. You've got your iPhone, it takes nice pictures, and you say, okay, let's get into it. But how much does the cell phone actually cost? If you pay cash, you're paying 22,000 Rand 999 today. But if you buy it on credit, the phone will actually cost you over 32,000 Rand. And that is the opportunity cost of wanting things right here, right now. You want your iPhone and you want it now. So now what is happening is you're having to spend 9,000 Rand, over 9,000 Rand more, just because you couldn't wait, just because you couldn't save. So in other words, let's break it down per month. Every month for 36 months, you are taking 260 Rand and you're just throwing it away. So how I like to say this, if you're a lady like myself who likes a skincare, you're buying your skincare routine, all your favorite products, and you're cleaning them up, and you're just throwing the stuff in the bin. You clean them up, you wash it up, and you throw the stuff in the bin. Just have a dedicated day every single month where you're cleaning up you buying your favorite products, cleaning them up, washing them away, and throwing away all the cans in the bin. If you're someone that likes alcohol, right, and we like saying this, you could buy your case, just have a dedicated day every single month for 36 months where you buy your case of alcohol, you open it up, you throw it in the toilet every single month for 36 months. So that's the opportunity cost of not wanting to wait, of wanting things in the here and the now. Let's look at what else you can do with 9,000 Rand. With 9,000 Rand, you can comfortably take a short lift with your friends. You can pay off some of your debt. You can even start a business, or you can save. So that's the opportunity cost of not wanting to put a plan in place, of not wanting to wait, essentially. And that brings us to our slide. I've just put a slide here on delayed gratification versus instant gratification. So with instant gratification, it's wanting, like we said with the iPhone, you want something and you want it now. You do not want to wait. You want to get something that you want and you want it immediately, right? Whereas with delayed gratification, which often has a better outcome, is waiting and planning to get something, but it's got long-term desired effects. So I'm going to stop here with this, and I'm just going to hand over to Craig. So young as I am, I also still suffer from the balance between instant gratification and delayed gratification. Sometimes, we all suffer from this thing where we just can't wait. So I'm going to let Craig reiterate on this point and take it forward. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Craig. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Okay. There we go.
Mind sharing? Just can't get my cell phone now. Okay. Right. Thank you, Sherry. That was a great bit of insight. And I think it's a good place for me to pick up with this delayed gratification versus instant gratification. As you can see by the color of my hair, I probably had a little bit more time to delay gratification, and hopefully we can share one or two things with you that will help. What's interesting when it comes to financial planning is that you've geared yourselves as students and possibly some of you working already. You've spent, up until this point in time, preparing yourself for the workforce so that you can earn money. And then the question is, what are you going to do with that money? And a lot of you have, I'm sure, fantasized and dreamt about what you're going to do. And just touching on some of the questions Alex asked you, it was interesting to note there was a fair amount of fear in those answers. There was a fair amount of fear. So it ties in quite nicely with what financial planning is all about. And financial planning is a combination of things, and it's a lot of things. So I'm not by any means going to cover everything. I'm just going to share some of the thoughts that spring to mind. It's about getting balance right, and it's about having a plan. It's about getting the balance between spending and saving, for example. It's about getting the balance between instant gratification and delayed gratification. It's about getting the balance between how much do I work, because we don't want to compromise what's important to us. We speak about values, we speak about morals. So it's about getting that balance right. So it's a lot of balancing, and you're going to spend your next sort of, call it 40 years, trying to earn money and accumulate money, or just spend it. I mean, that's your call. But you're going to spend 480 months potentially working to earn this money. And what financial planning is just that little bit of time that you sit down and reflect on what it is you're trying to do. What are you actually trying to achieve? What goals are you setting yourselves? What are your objectives? What gives you actual fulfillment in life? Because a lot of this instant gratification stuff is not going to give you long-term fulfillment. There's plenty of research around instant gratification. And, after that initial stage of euphoria, having bought a new car, a new item of clothing, within 24 hours, you can very often be faced with a lot of regret, buyer's remorse, something that I suffer from quite badly as a matter of interest. So what makes it so difficult then is that if you think about these corporations, and Sherry did mention it early, every single corporation on the planet, barring maybe one or two, has the sole objective of trying to get all of your money or as much of your money from you as quickly as possible. So, that's what capitalism is, essentially. And what happens is that they spend billions and billions of rands, dollars, whatever currency you want to count it in, trying to separate you from your money as quickly as possible. Okay. Nobody actually cares about you. That's what you got to realize. There are very, very few institutions, companies out there that actually care about you, your well-being, your fulfillment, whether you're living a morally a life that you are comfortable with, that you are being fulfilled. Financial planning is that one profession, in our opinion, that has that at its core. And it's what it really boils down to is helping you to find your balance in all of these issues. So that's just something I just wanted to mention just at the outset. How one goes about doing this is by having a plan. A plan is something that will obviously change as time progresses, as your opportunities arise. And the role of the financial planner is to partner with those clients in that financial journey. And that journey is not just financial, it just manifests in financial decisions that are made. But another interesting thing just to mention is that, we've worked with a lot of people over a very long period of time. And the one thing that is not obvious is that, people think, oh, well, if I'm clever, I will make good decisions and therefore I'll have lots of money. Absolute nonsense. Yes, being clever can help you make money, but it doesn't help or change your behavior in terms of what you do with that money. So a big part of the role of the financial planner is to partner with those clients, those people that need help with making better decisions. And that's really what it's about. You want to sit down 15, 20, 30 years from now and look back at your life and have as little regret as possible. We always talk about the regret issue. So if you've got a partner who helps you with the decision-making process, so that you can look back and say, okay, I contemplated 3 options and I chose this because I looked at it on an objective basis, and took tax into account, capital gains tax, took my moral compass into account, took my family into account, took my career into account, and then made a well-informed decision. So I know you're probably not expecting to hear this today. You probably thought we were going to sit here and tell you how you could take your money and double it in 45 minutes and then quadruple it again. It's not actually that simple, but at the same time, it is actually quite simple. I don't know if you've heard the rule of 72, and this ties into delayed gratification again. The example Sherry showed you, if you were to save that 9,000 Rand on that one cell phone choice, bearing in mind now what you've done is you've exhibited behavior that's probably going to be stuck with you for the rest of your life, good or bad. So that's a 9,000 Rand decision that you're making every 2 years potentially. Now, if you understand the compounding effect of money, the consequence of not spending that 9,000 on that phone is that you could have invested that 9,000. And if you get growth on your money at, call it 10% per annum, that means every 7 years, potentially, you're going to double up on that 10 grand. So 7 years from now, you're going to have 20 grand. 14 years from now, you're going to have 40 grand. 21 years from now, you're going to have 80 grand. 28 years from now, you're going to have 160 grand. And so it goes on. Now, if you take that compounding effect of each cell phone decision that you make over the next 40 years, it's 20 such cell phone decisions, and that money has got time to compound. That is the lost opportunity cost that you're going to be giving up on one day, all because of your actual self-discipline, your ego, whatever the reason is for wanting that phone immediately. We're not for one moment saying don't want the phone. All we're saying is that when it comes to making decisions, make them with your eyes wide open. Make sure that you understand what you're giving up. A lot of people we come across just through ignorance, whether it's laziness, whether it's just not caring, they will very simply say that they have no place they can cut their budget. And then we can point out very simple facts like a Coke a day at work, at the canteen, or at the tuck shop at Varsity. That $10 a day, $50 a week, 200 Rand a month, 2,400 Rand a year. That's your trip back to the Eastern Cape at Christmas time. That's decent second-hand surfboard if you're into that sort of thing. There's an opportunity cost there. So, sorry, I'm laboring the point, but a lot of this instant and delayed gratification is what you essentially combating when it comes to financial planning, both in your personal perspective, but also as a potential advisor down the line. You're going to be advising people that are wanting to post their latest overseas trip on social media because they look cool. They want to drop their kids off at school in a fancy car because it looks like they've succeeded. But the unintended consequence is that under the covers, the personal finances could be in a very, very different situation. So a lot of this is just trying to make sure that people are authentic and they are focusing on what's important to them. It comes back to having a plan in place, and then looking to execute that plan. I'm going to cover one or two sort of areas, but not in very much detail. That's probably something worth expanding on in the later session. So let's assume you've earned this money and you've exhibiting the right behavior, and now you've got money that you're looking to save or invest. And very simple. This is very simple stuff, guys. Obviously, you could just have cash in your wallet for the sort of more immediate expenses, stuff you're going to be buying on a day-to-day basis. Then the next tier would be to have some sort of savings in place. It could be a cash equivalent. And then finally, the sort of longer term stuff. So when we're talking 3 years plus, you would then look at investing. Reason being, when you invest, you putting money in asset classes that are a little bit more volatile. If you want to get growth, you need to be in what they call growth assets. So those are typically your equities and your property portfolios. So equity and property typically will earn you returns of around inflation plus 5 to inflation plus 7, irrespective of where you're invested globally in relation to the inflation rate in that country. That's just statistically over long periods of time. In the short term, anything can happen when it comes to growth assets. So when it comes to investing, the way that people invest in a more cautious manner is they would put some of those investments into, or some of that portfolio into cash and bonds to reduce the volatility. We're not going to talk in much detail about that today. I think that is a whole separate session on itself that we will no doubt be looking at expanding on. So these savings that we spoke about, so here we're talking about the sort of 1 to 2 year or 6 months to 2 year period. Very short term, an emergency fund could have a little bit of risk in there. And examples here, your holiday in a year or two's time that you're planning for, a wedding as Alex just had late last year, or you're wanting to actually save up for furniture because you have listened and you've watched and you've seen what it would cost you to buy furniture on credit, and you've realized it's a way better way to do this, to save up and then buy. So then you would just use a cash or very close to cash equivalent, simply because you don't have time on your side from an investment risk perspective. So it's all relating to the amount of time you have between now and when you plan on using the money. It's got nothing to do with your age. The fact that you are, in your 20s, if you're saving for something that is bound to be needed to be purchased in the next year or two, then you need to be a little more cautious when it comes to your investment strategy. Just turning to banking, and I think this is, again, very simple and straightforward. We've got a fantastic banking sector in this country, globally recognized. I think we all understand how banks work and how they make their money. Essentially, because we trust the banking system to store our cash, we're happy for them to give us what's essentially a slightly poorer return in terms of interest than, for example, if we lent that money to a friend or a dodgy family member or someone like that, where we might want a slightly higher return because the risks are higher. So because our banking sector is well regulated, it's very safe. They effectively don't give you, or don't need to give you, fantastic interest. However, when they borrow that money, lend that money to people who are buying houses, cars, etc., they will lend it out at a higher rate than what they are paying you. And that difference is where they make their profits. I think this is pretty straightforward. I'm not going to bore you with too much detail on that. We can look at that again in a little more detail in a later session. When we do these literacy sessions, often what we find is that people have multiple bank accounts. We're not pushing a particular bank, but what we do sort of find from the sessions we've done is that Capitec tend to have pretty good cost-wise benefits on their accounts. But again, this is no way a push towards any particular bank. What we would suggest, and this will be true irrespective of your age or stage in your life, do not be tempted to have multiple bank accounts with multiple credit cards. It will just result in you ending up in trouble. There's absolutely no need to have more than, an account with a single bank. Yes, you might want to have a check account and a credit card account, but just don't be tempted to have multiple accounts. A lot of the debt reduction work we do is literally people open another bank account, they're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and they just keep recycling. By the time we get involved in the picture, they're 5-6 bank accounts into the arrangement, and they're owing a couple of $100,000. The cost of credit account can be anything up to around 25%. So you're literally throwing, in Sherry's example, I always like to say to the guys, no one in their right mind out there is going to open a case of beer every single month and pour it down the toilet. And if you saw it happening, you'd stop the guy, even if you didn't know him. So, let's not do it in a different way. Yeah, and that's really what we try and say in these sessions. When it comes to the longer term investing, here we're talking 3 years plus. Obviously, now we can take more investment risk because there isn't that danger of, oh, well, what if I need to draw all my money and next year there's another global financial crisis, or, Donald Trump has declared war against Canada, or that's just a joke, by the way. But you get the point we're making here. Here you would target higher returns. So this might be something that is planned for the reasonably distant future, and you've got a little bit of time on your hands. Particularly retirement funds would fall into this category. So when it comes to money for retirement purposes, you can afford to take on a hell of a lot more risk than you can, for example, if you're planning for your wedding next year. But I think that's pretty obvious as well. But we can do more on that in a later session. So I think I've covered quite a bit on a career as a financial planner. Maybe let me just focus on that in more detail, and then I'm going to leave a lot of time for questions because I think we're going to get a lot more value out of what you guys have to say than listening to an old grey guy like me. But yeah, I think for us, a career as a financial planner, I would say, given the financial planners that I see that are living a very fulfilled life, in other words, they're happy, they get great joy out of the work they do and the value they add to their clients' lives. They're not actually in it for the money. They're in it for other reasons, and they're in it for the right reasons. So I would argue, if you're contemplating a career in financial planning, make sure that it's for the right reasons. And one of those, I'm not saying it's the only one of those would be that you really enjoy helping people live their best lives, live a fulfilled life, and you enjoy partnering with them, being their guide along this financial journey. And there's a lot of behavioral stuff. Don't be scared of it. You're young. You haven't had the experience yet. Don't be afraid of it. But it's a great, exciting learning curve. Initially, you've got to get the technical stuff done. So Sherry and Alex have got all the technical stuff done. They've written the exams, but now they're in an associate financial planner position. And what that means is that there's a lot of mentoring that's going to happen, because a lot of the skills that need to be learned now in the next sort of 5 years of their careers are soft skills, learning to read people and deal with people and not tell people what to do, but actually ask them what's important to them and get them to come up with a plan. You're just there to facilitate. So you're almost like the architect of their financial plan. You're actually there to ask all the right questions and listen to those answers, and then help them construct a plan that they've bought into, and they want to follow that plan. Because when it comes to them having this temptation of instant gratification, a brand new BMW, they need to turn around and say, but hang on, what is the lost opportunity cost? If I buy a R1 million car, 5 years from now, that car is probably going to have devalued to half of its value. So I'm essentially throwing away in depreciation R500,000. So in 5 years, it's essentially, I'm going to the toilet and I'm throwing 100,000 Rand away every month, because I could very easily go and buy that same vehicle as a 4-year-old, still got all the safety features, and I could buy a 500,000 Rand car that is 4 years old. I will still look pretty cool. I'll be just as safe, and it will result in me giving away a hell of a lot less in depreciation. So that amount of money that you've decided to not throw away is now available for other long-term, more important stuff. But I don't know what that stuff is. And you as a planner, that is your role, is to help clients find out what is most important to them in the long term, not just the look cool kind of instant gratification. And there are clients that can afford to do it, and it falls within their plan. That's why having a plan is so important. You'll notice when we talk financial planning, we haven't even touched on investing, because investing is irrelevant if you don't have money to invest because you've made bad decisions. Then investment advice is absolutely useless. You need financial planning advice, and that means making good choices that you don't regret. So that, in our view, is the role of the financial planner, and it's a very, very privileged industry to be a part of. So yeah, I think maybe I should open to questions. I probably rambled on and on, as my wife says I always do. Hopefully it's been reasonably useful, and I welcome any questions. That'll be for Alex, Sherry, and myself, of course.
Thank you so much, Alex and Sherry and Craig. I think I actually sat here and listened and made some notes. And even though my hair is not as gray as Craig's, I'm not that young anymore. So you think you can't learn, but you really can. And when he was speaking about the car now, we've got a saying in the house. Obviously, my husband would love a new car. But the other day when we drove past the dealership, I also said to him, and he said, just go and look. And I said, Johan, if you buy that car, who's going to own it? Currently, you own the car. But if we buy another one, the bank is going to own the car. So let's just, and that sort of, dropped a penny there. So, and no, I can't buy books. If I want it, I have to wait and maybe find it later at a second-hand store, and I will pay a lot less. So that's my problem. So, if anybody has any questions, please type them in the chat box. I don't see any specific questions there now, but I've got one. And I think you've touched on it. But my biggest problem always, and this is for myself as well as everybody else, drafting a budget is wonderful. And you can draft the most gorgeous budget in the beginning of the month and make sure that everything works out. I'm going to save and. How do you stick to that budget? Because I think that is where being human comes into play the most. And how do I make sure that I, at the end of the month, reward myself if I stuck to the budget or something? Is there certain techniques we can use just to make sure that we stick to the budgets that we draft?
So, Nikki, I think I'm guilty as charged. I find it very difficult to stick to a budget. So what Sue and I tend to do, that's my wife and I tend to do, is we have a look backwards at what it actually did cost us to live. And the thing that we do maybe slightly differently is that we pay our future selves first. So what I mean by that is we know what we need to save per month, and we save that. So then there's not the anxiety that comes with spending the rest, because you've already catered for the future, and that's sorted. And then if you do happen to spend the rest, it's okay. Yeah. And that's just because if I did it the other way around, there'd be nothing left to save. So, and this is where it's hard to find that balance between living in the now and 10 years time we might not be around, or whatever the situation is. So it's a very difficult one. There's not a right and a wrong answer, but definitely looking backwards. So budget has got very negative connotations. We think belt tightening and you're going to make me miserable and I'm going to hate this. So rather just look back at what you've spent on in the last 3 months, allocate it, and then when you're aware of what you've spent on, you're more likely to change your behavior going forwards. Because otherwise we just fool ourselves a lot of the time.
Yes, and I also think this is where your financial planner or your financial advisor can help you, because if you partner with someone who's going to keep you accountable, I know if I want to go to the gym, I have to have someone that screams at me to actually keep going. Otherwise, I'm just going to stop. And it works in the same. I mean, your financial advisor is not going to scream at you, but they will hold your hand and make sure that you walk that journey and that you hold yourself accountable for the spending that you do. Yes.
Absolutely.
So there's a few questions coming in now. Cindy has asked, for someone who wants to start managing their money properly, what methods can you use?
You want to answer? Okay. I think it all comes down to having a plan and a budget. So, if you don't have a plan, then it's like Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. So if you've got a plan and then you work back from that with a budget, as Sherry put in her part of the talk, those are the two essential ingredients. So you need to know what your fixed expenses are going to be in a month. What are your variable expenses likely to be in a month? And you need to then put a savings mechanism in place. Mostly we find people are better at saving if it's automated. In other words, there's a debit order running off your account and your savings happens first and then you spend the rest. Pretty much what I do. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you. Then, Bandile, this is an interesting question, and I would love to hear from everybody. What books would you recommend we read to be more knowledgeable about managing and planning the use of our money?
Sherry's going to answer this one.
Yeah. So I've got two books that have really helped me in terms of just understanding how money works and also managing money. The first book that I found easy to read and relatable is Sue Grant Marshall's book. It's called Mind Over Money. Really, it taps into the behavioral sides of dealing with money, and also just it's got straight to the point sort of ideas on how you can actually manage money. The second book is by Richard Templer called Rules of Wealth. And really, this is about if you want to accumulate wealth over term, what are the rules and what are the steps you can take in terms of starting to accumulate wealth? How do you maintain it, and how do you make sure that you don't save it? But those two books have been a highlight for me. I'll hear from the rest. Yeah.
Alex, Craig?
Your Honor, Sherry stole one from me there, but anyway, I think what I really actually enjoyed, and I thought what Craig also touched on was really important, is actually the psychology about money, the behavioral side. And one of them I really enjoyed was the psychology of money. Don't shoot the reader here. I know it's very common, but I found it was really incredible, because essentially, guys, money doesn't necessarily mean what do you do with it? It's a mind shift. Some people think that it's you have a set goal, you go to a bar, you go to your friends, you see your parents, they say you need to do X, Y, and Z, but sometimes what they say may be the gospel to you now may not be the right thing for you right there and there and throughout your journey. So it's essentially what I really enjoy psychology of money is about that mind shift. Instead of seeing your money as this entity being more part of your life and how you can make money work for your lifestyle. So I really enjoyed that book, and I highly recommend everyone else to read that. Greg?
You guys are putting me on a spot here. I've just finished Morgan Housel, his book called Same as Ever. I found that to be fascinating, because when it comes to decision making, people making decisions, they tend to always think that this time is very different from any previous time. And really what this book talks through is how similar things have remained through history, and the similarities in the way humans respond to what's out there. So forget what's going to happen. That's hard to predict. We can't predict what's going to happen, but how people will respond, that will be the same as it was the last time and the time before and the time before that. And it goes through, it's a book that you can read. I think there are 23 short stories, where he highlights these changes. It's quite a nice one. You can just pick it up and flick through, because most people never finish these sort of, I don't want to call them self-help books, but most people never finish them. They kind of read a chapter or two. This is nice. You can pick it up and just dive into any one of the 23 chapters, and there's a great story for it. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Lovely. I think we've got a reading list together here, but I want to touch what was interesting. Every single book touched on the behavioral side and not necessarily on the technical investment side. And I think this is what Craig also alluded to, is money is a very emotional part of everybody's being. And if we can't manage the emotional side of money, we're going to struggle to get to our goals, because we might be our own worst enemies. So it's very interesting. It's also one of the reasons why the psychology of financial planning is such a big thing at this point in time, and also being built into the curriculums for financial planning, because that's a really big part of what financial planners need to understand. So there's some good questions here. How do I build my credit profile? Let me just see. Sorry, I just lost it. How do I build my credit profile for my long-term goals, like a home loan? Mapula asks.
I'm happy to take that one on. So I understand the pressure, and everyone talks about credit score, and now there's this new app with, let me just grab what it was called again. I think it's actually really brilliant. I want to highly recommend everyone getting onto it. It's called Clear Score. So essentially, when I first started off after high school, my dad took me immediately to the bank. He was like, okay, you need to get a credit card. I'm like, why? Why are you encouraging me to spend money? But no, it's encouraging me to build something called credit score. Essentially, what your credit score is showing to the bank, essentially showing that your ability to pay back a loan in a certain period of time. And what you do with credit determines what credit score you are given. So in my instance, how I dealt with it and how I got a pretty good score right now is I followed and I learned something from my father, is that you become a revolver creditor. And when I talk about a revolving creditor, it's essentially that you go to the petrol station. So, you worked out your budget, as Sherry and Craig spoke about. You worked out your budget. You need to spend 800 Rand for petrol this month. You stick to it, and you need to spend 800 Rand. So instead of using your debit card to now purchase that, you go and use your credit card. So you now know, okay, you got the 800 Rand sitting on your check account. It's sitting there. You're not overspending, but you spend on your credit card. Now you go your groceries. You're going to spend 1,000 Rand on groceries. Spend 1,000 Rand on groceries, but you do that with your credit card. So now you get to the end of the month, and okay, I owe the bank now 1,800 Rand. You literally, all you need to do is transfer those funds across. And it shows is that what it does is that the bank sees that you spent their money and you paid it back immediately. And that is what we call revolving. So you're not overspending, but you're spending the same amount. And by doing so, it shows the bank that you are an active user in the economy as well as in the credit facility. And that in itself shows. Not just doing that, also having some creditable debit orders coming through. So like your cell phone account that's coming through. So if you are paying off your cell phone, as Sherry's saying, if you are buying an iPhone, if you are paying off that monthly and that's coming off your account, it does show that shows the bank that you're affording and also having the ability to pay off your debt quickly and well. And that goes the same thing with regards to credit, like your clothing accounts and all those things. But yeah, it's a brilliant way of building credit without having to go into the red. And yeah, so that's essentially when you get to the point where you do get a home loan, your bank originator will come and look in your statement and you'll see, okay, you have a good credit score. We're happy to facilitate that. So you guys start off small. And again, that's something you can also speak to your financial planner about too.
Sorry, guys. It doesn't have to be an iPhone, but a phone.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I think what you highlighted there is the importance of ensuring that there's enough money in your bank account when your debit orders go off. And there's a reason why the bank wants to institute your debit orders for the 25th of the month, because by the time some people get to the 1st, everything's been spent. But that bounce when the debit order can't be taken actually is negative for your credit score every single time that happens. So be very careful of that. If you've committed to something, make sure that there's enough money in your bank account to honor the debit orders that you've signed for. Then look at the next one is a very interesting question. And I think you've spoken about people that you assist with, lowering their debt when they get to you. So for someone who is already in debt and has other credits and want to settle them within a period of 12 months or less, how or which methods can he or she use? It's on a question asked by George.
George, I think again, what we look at, ultimately we used a technique called snowballing if you've got multiple debts, but let's get to how we would get to that point. We would need to again start with the budget to firstly establish, are you spending more than you're earning on a monthly basis? And if you are spending more than you're earning, then we've got to look at whether you can earn more or spend less. So we've got to give something up. And that is a decision that you would ultimately need to make, but in consultation with someone. And that's where Sherry showed you that great example of giving up something or reducing your expenditure. Mostly people can find a little bit of wiggle room in their budgets when it comes to clothing, because I'm assuming you're all clothed as we're sitting having this conversation today. So if you clothed now, you've got clothes. So that was a good start. So maybe you could compromise buying new clothes for the next 6 months, for example, or give up the cool drink a day or the fast foods or whatever it is. But you've got to give something up. And there's got to be some room to move in your budget. And then with that room to move, what we generally suggest is that additional cash, so in Sherry's example, there was an additional 250 Rand. Then go, and there's a psychology behind it, go to the person you owe the least amount of money to, is the one theory, and you pay them an additional 250 Rand a month over and above what you owe them until you've paid them off. That should get you paying that debt off quite quickly. Then you take the money that you were using to service that debt plus that 250, and you go to the second biggest debt, second smallest debt, and you pay that one off with all of that cash. All the while, you're just living on a compromised budget. Essentially, you're giving up something so that you've got this extra cash available. And that's called the snowball effect. So you take the repayments from the previous debts when they've been dealt with, and you use that money to fund the next debt. And if you keep doing that, you'll find that you'll have a plan in place. We've done it effectively for a number of clients over the years. Once you've done all of that, what you'll find, you'll be able to add back all those, whether they were indulgences or whatever you want to call them, you'll be able to add those back to your budget, but you will still have the extra money being now that you're debt free. So you're not servicing debt. So you'll still have that extra money, which you can then start using to save so that you never get back into that position again. So it's not that difficult to get out of, but it does take some compromise and it takes discipline. I think that's the key issue.
Absolutely. And this is, as we mentioned, where your financial planner or financial advisor can really assist you in drafting the budget, maybe giving you some advice and helping you stick to it. I can't stress that enough. Then another question, is there any implication of transferring money from my debit card to my credit card and to use it from there? I think this is in relation to Alex's comment earlier.
I'm happy to answer that. Fikile, thank you for the question. Fikile, I have to be honest with you. I think that is bank-to-bank dependent. For instance, I use ABSA, not promoting them at all. I just something my parents took me through when I was 13 years old, so I've just stuck with them. But as far as I know, I don't have any transferring fees when I do transfer between from my debit card to my credit card. But then again, I do highly recommend just like reviewing your terms and conditions between your accounts. Like go back to your bank and then just understand your monthly fees, because there will be monthly fees depending on what you do, and that's really important to understand if that bank account is working for you. And something that Craig touched on, even though we're not We're not promoting Capitec at all, but what the core principle is that you need to find something that works for you. If it's something as plain as simple as a debit account, and you just need a check account and maybe a credit card, look at between the banks, which has got the lowest fees across. Because essentially, it shouldn't be something flashy and fancy. It's something that's as simple as transferring funds, paying from. And yeah, I think it's something really important that you need to review your terms and conditions with your bank and see if that will work for you. Thank you, Fikile.
Thank you, Alex. And I think Alex touched on something else that is important. I think it's important for you to take control of your finances. Just because the bank tells you that this is what it is, you still have a choice. Don't, if you want to pay for a financial service, interrogate it, ask the questions. You have the choice to make. Even if you are sitting with a financial planner or a financial advisor and they give you a plan and they give you some recommendations, interrogate it. Make sure you understand it and that you're comfortable with it. I think in many cases we're too scared. It's like going to a doctor and they do a diagnosis and you just accept it. You don't need to. You are allowed to ask questions and make sure that you understand. And it's the same with finances. And I think we all need to take control of our finances and ask the right questions. And then the last question that we'll deal with this afternoon, and I think I'm going to not just ask Craig for this one, but also our younger advisors, because I think it's a very different industry that we entered into today, as it was those days. So for someone who wants to join the financial planning profession, what are the core characteristics they have to have?
I can take this one. So obviously you have to, the technical abilities is one of the characteristics that you need to have. You can, once you've done your postgrad and your board exams, sort of that ticks the box. And yeah, don't be scared, guys. You will fail. I speak from experience. It happens. But once that box is ticked, you sort of get introduced to the real financial planning industry. And this is where your soft skills, as Craig mentioned, sort of now come into place. And there are just some things that you need to have. For example, you need to learn how to be accountable, because what you tell clients or your advice, you should be accountable for what you're telling the client, because whether or not you tell them the wrong thing or the right thing, you cannot now run around and say, maybe it's not on me, it's on you. You just learn to take accountability. And also being honest. We, as young advisors, we don't always know everything. So it doesn't help to tell the client lies or things that you don't know to prove a certain point. Be honest enough where you're not sure of what's going on or where you're not sure of exactly what you're doing. Don't be scared to ask for help from your seniors, or not just in your company, but also just in the industry. Find your mentor and sort of find those people that you lean on when things get real and you're not really sure what to do. And just, attention to detail. And this is not just for financial planning, but I think the whole finance industry as a whole, if you're in this industry or if you're planning to get into the industry, you need to have a strong acumen for attention to detail, because there's a lot of paperwork. One little number, one mistake of, putting 9 instead of 6 can have dire implications. So it's important that you pay attention to detail. Let me not exhaust the list. And maybe Alex wants to add something.
Yeah, Sherry, thank you so much. Yeah, no, Sherry touched a lot about the point. Interestingly, Sherry and I did a lot of part of our studies actually together, the last in our postgrad as well as our CFP board exams. And, during that process, we were actually talking about it and how scary it is actually when we take the practical work and we apply it to the theory. And what's important there, guys, is that no matter what you do, the theory, sometimes it can come through and you can jump into the meeting going like, well, here's all the answers, here's all the solutions I can throw at you. But the important thing is actually when you walk in that meeting, it's not just about you and about the theory you worked through, all the years that you worked, and forget your ego behind the door. You get in the meeting and you're there for that client. You're there to listen to them and understand where they are. Because when you close that door behind it, whether it's just with them or with their spouse or there's a family member, you're really vulnerable with them. And the most important part, I think, one of the things that I really enjoyed, what I keep talking about my dad, but that because he built this love for financial planning for me, is that number one thing people are scared about is their health, and second is their money. And to talk about that is extremely, it's scary and it's vulnerable. So I think, like, again, going back to the behavioral side, it's the most important thing when you go into financial planning, that you're there for that person, and you're not just there to provide solutions. Yes, that's the most important part, doing the tax and the retirement and the risk planning and the estate planning. That's all important, but sometimes you're there to listen and help them put the decision making in their hands. You're not for you to make the decision for them, but giving them the knowledge. So yeah, it's a knowledge. It's all about behavior. It's all about giving them the decision making power. And that's, for me, what is the core characteristic: is being patient, being kind, and being a good listener. So that's one for me. Thanks, guys.
Craig, anything you want to add?
I think they've covered it all, Nikki.
I agree. I think just one thing that I would like to comment here on, and I mean, I love hearing the voice of the younger financial planners, because one of the things that we've seen through the years is that too many people come into the industry and think, I can only do financial planning by sitting in front of a client. And I think that no matter whether you are a people person or maybe more a detail-oriented person who loves sitting behind a computer or things like that, in financial planning, there's a space for everybody. You need the client-facing financial planners, you need the para-planners, you need the office managers, you need your analysts in investments, you need your estate specialists and your psychologists. So it is so wide that once you get into this industry, you will find your niche, and your niche might not be the same as anyone else's. So just because you don't fit a certain characteristic, don't let it put you off. Go for financial planning, take what you can and find your own way, because it's a fairly new profession and there's a lot of areas to go. If you are interested in learning more about how to become a financial planner, how the FPI works, and maybe become a candidate or student member of the FPI, which is totally free, but we invite you to all of our sessions like this, and we give you career guidance and we help you on your pathway, please send an email to YFPO. That stands for Young Financial Planners Organization. So YFPO@fpi.co.za, and Fatima and Klingiwe will get back to you with the information. Craig and Alex and Sherry, thank you so much for the session. I loved every second of it. And I see there's people who want to know when we post this because they want to go and watch it 4 times again. So I think we really added value. The session will be available on our FPI My Money 123 website for anyone who wants to go and have a look there. And we will see you next time. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thanks to all those people that listened in, and we really, really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful afternoon.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.